It's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. How are you? Welcome to Wednesday, affectionately called Hump Day. This is show number 147. Show 147 of Emil Amok's Takeout. This is the micro talk show for the AAPI and the AAXs. My name for Asian American Pacific Islanders or the Asian American and X, you fill in your ethnicity. However you want. I mean, got some flack from the Filipinos. They said, oh, we like to be called Filipino American, or we like to be called American Filipino, or we like to be called Pinoys, or this is just a naming convention. Thank you for being here. Right off the bat, we have our digital divide. Look, I'm going to keep this on because Congress is talking about the infrastructure plan, that 3.5 trillion dollar package, and it includes beefing up the digital capabilities of the nation, Wi-Fi, you name it, broadband, 5G, 6G, whatever G's. I'm just one G. I'm an Emil G. And we're just trying to do our thing here using the democratizing tool of the internet. But look, as you can see, the moment we crack open the mic, boom. The inequities of it all. So I hope you're paying attention to what's going on in Congress. Actually, it's good to just sort of let the politicians kind of cackle, because at some point when it gets down to, oh, we got to act, I think they'll come together, especially since it's Democrats versus Democrats right now. And then they have to face the Republicans. We'll talk about that all later because, an Asian American is one of the conservative Democrats, the so-called blue dogs, Stephanie Murphy out of Orlando, who I was just seeing her on the news. She's seems responsible. I mean, if you're going to get elected in Orlando, it's probably slightly more liberal than other parts of Florida, but not by much. So she's a co-chair of the Blue Dogs, the so-called Blue Dogs. And we'll talk about that a little later. There's a lot of things I want to get to. This is our Lanyap section. And, I started up early because there is a lot of stuff. Yesterday's show, I talked about the New York Times, what the Asians think about America. The piece that ran online last week, and then finally they printed it on Tuesday. That's how the news business does it. Now, I saw it on the weekend for the first time, read parts of it yesterday, and it's significant, how the feelings of people who are in their 30s and their 40s. Note, I didn't say they talked to people in their 50s or their 60s. That would have been people with a sense of it all, the whole kit and caboodle. They didn't talk to people like me, but they did talk to people in their 30s, in the 40s. That's the demographic of news. They also didn't talk to any. They didn't talk to any Filipinos. They barely talked to Indian folks. There was maybe one or two South Asians, maybe three South Asians at the most. Mostly they were East Asians, Chinese. Some Thai, there were a couple of Thai, a Cambodian. I guess they tried to make it more diverse, but I noticed there were no Filipinos. It's one of the things about being the Filipinos are, if you look at the latest census numbers, they were the largest, then they sort of slipped down in the second, inexplicable for Catholics who should believe in no birth control. But now we're third. I think it's just because of the overwhelming immigration from China and from India, and suddenly not as and the immigration from the Philippines is sort of plugged up. We are a Chindipino Asian American community. Chinese, Indian, Filipino. But were the Filipinos in the New York Times survey? They weren't. So I'll get to that a little later too today. Um, I do want to talk about Robert Aaron Long. Aaron, Aaron. The AA is not for Asian American. He's the accused killer of the shoot up in the spa in Atlanta. That's the second part, right? In July, he pled guilty to the first part of the crime, the killings in Cherokee County. And he's getting, let's see, his sentence is pretty ridiculous, right? I mean, he pled guilty in Cherokee County. And let's see, we're going to go to the, where is it? Here it is. The AP story. You know, Cherry, 4 counts of murder. He received 4 sentences of life without parole plus an additional 35 years. But then, in Fulton County, which is where Atlanta is, they're looking to try to put him away for these, 4 other murders. And he appeared in court for the first time on Tuesday. Now, because of the way the news cycle is, sometimes it didn't appear in uh, people's feeds until like late yesterday or today. But he has pled not guilty to 4 killings in Atlanta. Those were the second group. He appeared in Fulton County, didn't address the judge. The judge said set the next hearing for the 23rd. And according to the news, brief appearance. Not much has happened. He had a little COVID scare within his defense team, so they put off this hearing. His next appearance will be November 23rd. But just consider, he's already has 4 sentences of life without parole plus an additional 35 years. That's for the 4 sentences or the 4 counts of murder in Cherokee County, the very first set of spa murders. This next set in Atlanta, he's pleading not guilty. I don't know what his thinking is. Maybe he thinks, okay, I'm not going to fight the ones in Cherokee County, but I'm going to fight this one because this comes with hate crime enhancements. And so I think it's good just to review who was killed. Those killed in Cherokee County: Paul Michaels, 54, Zhaoji Emily Tan, 49, Dao Feng, 44, Dailana Yan, 33. Dailana Yan sounds like an Asian name, but she was not Asian. The Atlanta victims were Sunsha Kim, 69, Soon Chung Park, 74, Hyung Young Grant, 51, and Young Ayu, 63. So 8 Asian Americans. I you might want to say, well, look, when do we start showing a little sympathy for this guy? I don't think it's time yet. I don't think it's time yet to show sympathy. Let's see first if we can have justice for the families. Let's see first if we have justice for the kin of those involved in the Atlanta shootings. Sunsha Kim, Soon Chung Park, Hyun Young Grant, and Young Ayu. And let's see how it plays out. Let's see the killer. He is a killer. He's already convicted in the previous murders in Cherokee County, but let's let justice play out. November 23rd is Robert Aaron Long's next appearance. Okay, so I just felt like I had to comment on Robert Aaron Long because the only reason why the New York Times did that thing, what's it feel like to be an Asian American or an Asian in America now, is because of Atlanta. You got to acknowledge that Atlanta is the reason why people are noticing us. And that was one of the feelings that came out of those responses that were plucked out of the New York Times survey. I mean, remember they put out a call for Asian Americans to write in, and these are the Asian Americans who wrote in, or at least the Asian Americans who were selected. And of the ones that I read yesterday, they were just shocked that, and it's important that they were in their 30s and in their 40s. And there were people who were coming to this new awakening that, oh boy, race does matter. Uh, oh boy, we aren't as ensconced in American society as I thought. I mean, a lot of these people who responded were born in America. Some were married to Caucasians. Some had kids. They were trying to figure out, well, what do I check off on the box? And what it shows is a real sense of, well, it's uncertain how Asian Americans fit in after all these years. And yet, at the end of some of the statements that were published, the writers would say either they had a sense of fear that is heightened, or they had a sense of resolve to speak out now. Well, welcome. I mean, I've had that sense since the 1960s. Some people had that sense before civil rights. I was born, I mean, I came into consciousness after the civil rights, uh, you know, movement, late 60s, early 70s, and didn't really, I mean, when Vincent Chin, when he was murdered in 81, I don't know really if I was as woke as I needed to be back then. But even then, in 81, the nation wasn't where it should have been. I remember talking to Helen Zia about her memories about the time in the 80s after Chin was dead. And she recalled how even some civil rights lawyers still saw everything in a black and white kind of paradigm. The Asian paradigm really doesn't come into play, even though it begins in 65 with the Immigration Act and the allowance of more Asian immigrants into the country. But it was still a black white world in 1981 with Vincent Chin. And here we are, right? 40 years after Atlanta. And we are still in this. It just seems like this nascent stage after all we've been through as Asian Americans in this country, from Gold Mountain, 1840s to 1860s to the 1890s in exclusion. Filipinos come in the early 1900s when they were colonized. The Indians come in, the Asian Indians, and their treatment in California and throughout the country, well documented. Anti-miscegenation laws. My goodness, it takes a long time, and we're still fighting. We're still fighting. That's why we don't have to give a pass to Robert Aaron Long quite yet. Let's let justice move forth and let's see what happens. Thank goodness the hate crime laws are going to apply in Fulton County in Atlanta. They didn't in Cherokee County, just north of Fulton County. In the first set of the murders that that digital divide just gets you all the time.